Hey everybody, Edo here, and as is tradition on this channel, whenever Pencil First Games is doing a new Kickstarter, I do this video on what we did differently this time around. We've done a lot now, over 20, so it always is changing and moving a little bit. The campaign in question here is our Hanafuda large format edition. For those tracking, a number of years ago we did the Hanafuda Deluxe edition, and this was really like a premium product in that it was the traditional style decks. We had a bunch of this additional material involved, and these cards are all double wrapped, thicker versions of it. And what we, but it was expensive. I think on Kickstarter this was $30 and retails at $35, and we did a limited number of them. And so instead, for this time around, we have our large format edition. This is effectively, these are poker sized cards, but we still have the reference cards and full-size rules. Well, not full-size, but detailed rules. And actually, it's not that different in size from the original. But then the same card art from Vincent Dutrait, but on these larger format editions, including some easy, accessible sort of iconography on the cards, etc. So, but in particular, a much smaller price point. This one we're going to do at 12 instead of 30. So really a very different edition, but using a lot of the same card art and things like that. So, in terms of the basics, still on Kickstarter. I've looked at all the other sites again and again, always considering it. Maybe I'm going to do it this time, maybe not. But we continue to see that our audience is still on Kickstarter, as well as the types of folks who are backing these types of brighter, casual, non-miniatures, hardcore games. I think there has been trends to suggest the other platforms are doing just as well in these categories. But, at some point, being a small company, Pencil First Games just keeps it simple, keeps it the same. Our page is very typical Pencil First Games. If you look at it, and we'll link the link, but clean layout. We use the table of contents, streamlined to current information. So a lot of that's the same as we have been doing it previously. And so if you're familiar with a Pencil First Games site, you'll Kickstarter page, it'll look very familiar, but we've had a lot of success with that model. And we're continuing to use the Kickstarter pledge manager. We've used a variety in the past. In Vineyard, our last campaign, we did use the Kickstarter one for the first time. We were pretty happy with the pledge management tool, the support from the Kickstarter team. There have been some bumps and little things here along the way, but overall it's been positive, and it's super streamlined and easy to use in terms of how well it's integrated into the actual Kickstarter page. So fulfilling right now for Vineyard and happy with it. So we're using that pledge manager. And around this time, I think for Vineyard 2, Kickstarter overhauled their pre-launch page to make it much more robust and effective. And we're using that as well and been really happy with it. So lots of good adjustments there. The other thing that's similar to what we've done in the past here is these small box games. We've taken our larger games and made a smaller edition Hanafuda or Sunset Over Water, and this has been pretty successful for us. They're Kickstarter only, and then we sell direct, so they don't go to retail. It changes the cost of them. They're very small, cheaper to manufacture, easier to ship, so they have a lot of advantages. And in many cases, I've used sort of simplified contracts to, just have less overhead and upkeep to try to create and drive these projects. So they're just easier to manage, they're easier to deliver, and because of the margin, we can support smaller runs and still sort of have successful releases. So they've worked well for us. This is continuing that work, though. In this case, we talked about doing it in that same box size, but ultimately to keep costs down, as well as just sort of in line with how we were thinking about these sort of at the larger format or poker-sized decks, it just felt a little. It made more sense to do it in this type of box, but we'll see. I don't know how many more titles this seems very specific to Koi Koi here, or Hanafuda. So in terms of differences, so this is the first time, so we're just doing this for the Hanafuda deck. Normally when we do these small box games, they're embedded into larger campaigns as add-ons, and so they haven't been enough to run a campaign on themselves, but they get included, like we did the Nature Trio that had a couple of them, or other campaigns in the past that have done that. This will be the first time we're doing it. Because of COVID, Sunset Over Water Pocket Edition didn't have a Kickstarter at the time, and we ended up just selling it in the future, but all of the other ones have been with another one. So this is the first time we're just saying all that's on sale in this Kickstarter is this. And I think part of that also is there's a couple other interesting aspects. One, we're now releasing in the playing card category on Kickstarter instead of tabletop. That's interesting. I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have, but we're now in a playing card category more so than in your traditional board game category, though we could have gone into that category too. And we're also going after, part of this is taking this thing that was more expensive, making it cheaper. We're looking at a aggressive price point. We're going to do $12. It's not the most aggressive price point possible, but it's pretty aggressive price point. And we're excited to have that lower tier. And one thing that we're not doing as well, which is pretty different, is we're not building in all of the additional tiers on top of it, whether it's the gilding of the stuff, the gilding of the cards, or adding a bunch more. We're not doing all that. And ultimately, it's probably not the right call. Like it's certainly the case that when you're releasing and doing crowdfunding, it's to a publisher's advantage to create price points where different people who want to spend more can. So effectively, when you release something and it's only $12, what you're saying is the most money that you can contribute to this Kickstarter is $12. They can always add more, of course, but that's sort of what you're saying. Whereas if you have this bundle, this go, the people who don't have a problem spending more money can, and there's an opportunity there. And so in that regard, it's off the table. We also didn't want to go through and remanufacture the old version and try to do that for some splitting the audience, where there could have been this version, the deluxe version as well. We're really just having a small focus campaign, and to that end, it means that we have a very low target. We don't have to print a ton of these, and so we think it's going to be pretty effective, but limiting. And if we were trying to be a more ambitious or go hard on this, I think we would look for more of those types of moments. But in making a part of our perspective on this edition is we wanted to keep costs down in terms of complexity, and it was really just we love the version we did. We wanted to do a cheaper, effective one for folks, and we don't want to make that complicated by throwing in a bunch of new development costs and all this other. So we just want to do a really beautiful, simple card, poker-sized edition, and make it available to folks. And if folks are really excited and we get a large number, that's fantastic, but we don't have to. We can have a small number of folks who really are interested in it and who get it. And so that's exciting in and of itself. But it is. I will just emphasize, it is an important consideration. And if you don't have opportunities for people who are willing to spend more money, they won't. That's how that works. So it is something that we always think about on a campaign, but for this one, sort of stuck to the simplified version. And there's not a bunch of bells and whistles, etc., as I mentioned. So this is also FSC certified. Vineyard was as well. This is the Forest Stewardship Council saying that these are from the paper products are from managed forests. Ultimately, the cost implication is pretty negligible, especially when you're working with just a single deck of cards. But it's something to consider when you're going through the manufacturing process, and most manufacturers now will bring it up to you. I think the other thing that's different and worth mentioning consideration is, obviously there have been a lot of, continue to be, changes to global businesses selling international manufacturing outside of the United States, et cetera, et cetera. And tariffs have been a huge part of that conversation, and obviously are just unsettled as of making this video. It's still bouncing around and doing its thing. This was an interesting addition, as there are much more complex projects that require more complex systems and manufacturing, but this is pretty straightforward. And so we did start looking at and considering alternative options for printing from Watts Games, who we've worked with for probably 15 years now, 12 years now. And what's been interesting is everyone's super busy and not interested in small print runs and working with small fries. But my experience, the on-demand printing services don't really care, but when you're looking for sort of that professional manufacturing aspect of it, And then the places we did start seeing information, the cost still was sort of all over the place. And so ultimately, again, simplicity first. We stick to what we know, and having been through sort of the tariff piece of this a bunch already with Vineyard and other projects, like, you can sort of build it into the per unit basis, especially if you're not going to wholesale, right? Like, so in some ways, Kickstarter and direct to consumer does enable or support or give a little bit more flexibility when it comes to your COGS or cost of goods, or what ultimately it takes to manufacture a product, and having a reasonable amount of headroom to make it worth doing. So it's an ongoing conversation, it's ongoing consideration, but for now, we look at it as part of, it's probably the difference between this Kickstarter campaign being $12 versus 10, right? It's that kind of thing right now. But I think for folks who are doing larger campaigns and large products, it's super significant and terrifying. So, but that's how we're thinking about it, and that's how we're thinking about today. When I come back and I do this video for the next product, maybe I'll feel differently. But so anyway, super excited. If you have never played Hanafuda, please try it. Whether you tried one of these editions or you just get a traditional one from Nintendo or whatever, it's such a delightful little game, and I think it really is a fantastic contrast to sort of the history of poker and Hanafuda. So, like, I just think it's a fascinating history. It's a fascinating product. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and it supports a lot of game concepts that are. Go, if you've never played Hanafuda, go play Hanafuda. However you have to do it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye. Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.